Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome from the heart of Dripping Springs. We are Mallett and Michelle, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. We're recording today on a Friday, which
yes,
is like...
because our very exciting guest, Justin Donald from the Lifestyle Investor, is going to join us, and this was the only time he could do it. So we moved our schedule around. So yeah, he's a best-selling author and the founder of the Lifestyle Investor. So he's going to come in a little bit, and we'll get to hear from him. But we got to thank our sponsors.
Absolutely. M. Elliott Studio.
Capital Farm Credit.
Nomic Power Solutions.
And the Mallett Integrity Team. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for listening. I had one of our guests, I think it was Trey last week, said, before we started recording, he said, can you get your all's podcast on Apple Podcasts? And I said, Trey, it's on Apple Podcasts. He said, what about Spotify? I said, it's on Spotify. So for those of you listening, you can get us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. You can get us on YouTube, which is just the audio. But if you search us on YouTube, it'll pop up. So if you're a YouTube aficionado, you can find us on there. So pretty much any place that you listen to podcasts, you can find Mallett and Michelle.
And I think you want to, even if you don't like us, listen to us because we're
full
funny.
Of good information and we're fun.
We're full of something.
We are full of something. Hey, big shout out to Jordan Headley. She surprised us last week. So we were doing our live and we were both complaining about how hungry we were. And then when we wrapped up the show, we walked out in the lobby and she was standing there with tacos.
I know. Wasn't that nice?
That was very nice of her.
She knows Mama Lewis and don't want to get Mama Lewis hangry.
The path to a happy Michelle is through her stomach.
That's right. Even though I don't eat a lot, but I do like food. Hey, we have a little bit of Dripping Springs news.
A lot of Dripping Springs news.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the house that is right next to H-E-B is now no more.
Holly told me that. I saw that they were like tearing down the fence or something, but I didn't notice the house is gone.
The house is totally gone. The reason why is, and I'm a little excited about this, they are
Arby's.
No, they were building an Arby's. No, they are expanding the H-E-B. H-E-B bought the property.
Oh,
but your favorite sandwich place the lease has not been renewed.
At Thundercloud?
At Thundercloud. I almost said when I call it Thundercloud.
Don't call it that. Lots of people like that.
I don't like Thundercloud. And the thought is they're going to expand H-E-B into those shopping center areas. And they're going to move the shopping center where the house is. But I hope they leave the big tree. So they're switching them.
So it'd be like a strip center over there. So all the restaurants and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So that makes sense to me because there's a lot of room to expand on that, which would be the west side.
This H-E-B definitely needs it. It outgrew itself very quickly.
Yes, it did. It's packed. Like even if you think you're going to go in there and just run in and get something, it's always packed. Even 10 o'clock in the morning and during the week, it's packed.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to affect Whataburger over there, having an Arby's right next door to them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've got some great news. We've been talking on and off about this, and we had Jody from Mountain Gateway on last year. They're a mission project that are based here in Dripping Springs. 13 pastors and attorneys.
Yes.
There were Nicaraguan pastors and attorneys that were associated with Mountain Gateway in Nicaragua were arrested last year and have been imprisoned for 9 months. They just got released on September 5th.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That is, I've been keeping up with that, and it was really, really awful what was going on
Yeah,
there.
the Nicaraguan government wasn't giving any reasons why they were arrested. I think they accused them of
money laundering or something.
Money laundering, but I guess what it sounded like, they weren't officially charged yet. But anyway, the U.S. government, Mountain Gateway, and some other people intervened and got those folks out of prison. I don't know what's going to happen from here, but at least they're not in in prison right now.
I think it was the State Department also. They had some
Yeah.
senators in the State Department, and so thank goodness for that.
Yeah. So I have a story that I thought was really interesting, and I think it's indicative of what's been happening in our economy with, I saw a thing that in 2019, the average home price in the United States was like $215,000, and now it's $430,000. So it's basically doubled in the last 5 years. That mostly youth are doing what they call extreme renting, meaning they rent their apartment, they lease their cars, they rent their clothes. If they need any tools, they rent them from Home Depot. They aspire to pretty much own nothing.
Interesting.
Did you know that you can rent clothes?
Yes.
Did you? Have you ever tried it?
No, my friend Sarah does, and she always has the cutest stuff, and I think it's actually kind of smart. Now, I know that they have Rent the Runway where you can like
That's for
proms
more
and-
expensive stuff.
Yeah, but she does it. I think she gets 4 or 5 outfits a month, and if she wants to keep them, she pays for them. If not, she just returns them.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. There's another company called, I wrote it down. It's Newly or something like that. I'll see if I can find it here in a sec. But there is some examples of the extreme renting would include people that rent potted Christmas trees. So you go rent your Christmas tree. It's in a pot. You return it back to the nursey. People that rent caskets. So
Wait, now I know this because if you're being cremated, like, why are you wanting to buy a
that's
casket?
exactly right. So you rent the casket, and then for the whatever, what do they call that? A wake, where there's a viewing, and then you give the casket back, pay them a rental fee, and then the body goes in something less, and then it's cremated. Bicycles. Now there's a company called Lisa Bike that you can actually rent very nice bicycles from.
Rent a husband?
Rent a husband. I think they used to call those gigolos.
No, rent a husband. You rent a husband to do handyman stuff around the house.
I'm sure there's.
Mallett,
Yeah.
I can't believe you went right there, the gigolo comment.
It was easy. You just tossed it right up. But people that are really taken to this lifestyle say that it allows them to be very nimble and easy to just pick up and go. So if you're not tied down to a house, you can just kind of go, I found that. It's Newly rents clothes. Yeah, it's $100 a month. Women's only stuff, nothing for men yet.
Steve rents from Denims R Us.
It's chambray. It's not denim.
Chambray. Okay, so my little story that I have, and I don't think that you have even heard about this. Have you heard about the Chase Bank fraud that's going around right now?
I don't, and you told me to put it on our list of things we're going to talk about, and it makes me nervous because I have accounts at Chase Bank.
Well, you are not an idiot or a stupid person. Okay, they're calling it...
I don't know. Some people might beg to differ.
Depends on what day. They're calling it the glitch of 2024. Who's calling it that? The millennials and the Gen Zers. Okay, so these idiots are writing themselves checks, then depositing said hot checks, and then withdrawing the money. And the reason why they're calling it a glitch is because Chase Bank doesn't automatically flag it right at the very beginning. Because you do, you take a picture. I started doing it now where I just take a picture of the check and I don't have to go to the bank anymore and deposit it. Well, first off, I want to know where these millennials are getting checks because none of my kids carry checks.
Yeah,
okay, so I don't know.
I think most people under 25 don't even, maybe 30, don't even know how to write a check.
Under 40. But what they are doing is creating fraud. It's a federal felony with time in prison. And so they're writing themselves a $30,000 check. They're depositing it. And then they're spending the money, and then their bank gets their accounts overdrawn by...
And they think nobody's going to have a problem with that?
It's just a glitch. Oh, my gosh. Can you believe that Chase Bank is doing this? It's just a total glitch. Now, FBI right now...
You're right. Those people are freaking stupid.
They're idiot. FBI has a list, and these people better run because they're going to get chased. Isn't that funny? It was my joke, but you missed it. Went right over then. But it goes all back to there's no such thing as free money. Right? You have to work for it. But one of the other, now I've been seeing this on TikTok, and one of the other things that I'm seeing now, they're saying, oh, there must be a patch for the glitch. This is all the
Are
terminology.
they really trying to say it's a glitch?
Oh no, they've done it, and they're recording themselves. That's the other thing. They're recording themselves doing
putting
this
it on social
and
media?
putting it on social media.
What
So
is wrong with people?
yeah, well, don't even get me started. But I saw that and I thought that has to be the most asinine thing.
I guarantee you that was somebody on TikTok said, "Hey, I
Yeah,
figured
it
out a
was.
way to game the banking system.
was a glitch,
You
yeah.
write yourself a check for 20 grand and then you deposit it and you can go take the money out right then and then go spend it and buy all the stuff you want. It's like free money."
Well, there was
Stupid.
an interview from a Chase Bank employee at one of the, not our branch, but a local branch, and they were saying that they were being bombarded with calls from people that were saying, "Why is my account so overdrawn?" And they had a grand old time spending this money, but yeah, so don't be stupid.
The fact that even one person did that makes me sad. It makes me. Maybe there's always been people that stupid, but that goes to a whole nother level.
Do you remember the days when you used to write checks for everything, and you'd go into like the little local convenience store, or the grocery store, and you'd see somebody's face behind there with their canceled check, and it says "hot check writer."
Yeah, I do. I remember that.
It would
Yeah.
just blast them right there. My little grocery store down in the valley, when we were kids, they actually had like a poster board, kind of like next to the wall,
Right.
the wanted kids, or not wanted kids, the lost and found kids. And you'd have the hot check writers
Yeah.
of the week, and how humiliating!
You know what? So our listeners probably don't know this. When I was really young, in my 20s, I owned a bicycle shop, and it was when Oakleys first came out, and Oakleys then were sold mostly in like skateboard stores and bicycle shops and motocross places. And it was about once a month, somebody would come in that didn't look like they had anything to do with cycling or sports. And they would go, "I want 5 pair of Oakleys. I'm going to write you a check."
Oh,
And it was always somebody that was going to write a hot check. And we ended up, I got taken once, and then I hired it. There was a company, I can't remember what it was called, Telecheck or something. And you could call and run it through, and it would tell you if the check was good or bad. But I remember that's the way people did. And then they just disappear with the glasses and
scammies.
and
People
they were,
are
back then they were, $100, $150 glasses. So it was like $700-800
out of your pocket.
out of my pocket.
Yeah.
So
That sucks.
the other day, I actually almost every day now, when I get up out of bed, and you and I talked about it, the first like 10 steps I take every morning, I'm like, "Oh, my feet hurt, my legs hurt. What's wrong with my back? Oh, what's going on with my shoulder?" And so this article that I ran across just spoke to me. It says, "Feeling suddenly older, scientists see aging waves at 44 and 60. I'm 61. I think I hit a wave." This article goes on to say age-related changes include slowing metabolism and wrinkling skin, which I have the wrinkling skin. I think I do have the slowing metabolism, but they pile up over time, but may crescendo at certain specific points in life. So we've always thought aging was like, once you reach 40, every year you lose like, 3% of your muscle mass or 3% of your flexibility, but it's actually not like that. It's not linear like that. It kind of goes in spurts. So you're halfway between the two right now. How old are you now?
53.
53. So yeah, you got a little ways to go, but there's a lot of scientific study behind this that when people hit 60, things go downhill pretty quick.
I'm Dorian Gray.
You're Dorian Gray.
I think
what's funny is I was riding my bicycle trainer this morning, and I was thinking, up until last year or maybe 6 months ago, I thought I was going to fake out this aging thing for a while, like, because I'm so active and I watch what I eat, and for the most part, except for chocolate, and that, I was going to kind of cheat it for a while, but I don't think I'm outrunning it.
Do you look at pictures back from when you were younger and go, "Wow," but like I still see that person in older pictures of you. Like you don't look too different.
For me, it's weird to me because I still think of myself as a big, full brown head of hair and smooth skin. And, every time I
that
look,
was Fat Steve.
that was Fat Steve, yeah. But when I look in the mirror, a lot of times I'm like, oh, damn, dude, you look old. Look how thin your hair is. Look at those wrinkles under your eyes. It's almost like a shock every time I see it.
Don't look at it.
Yeah, well, I know.
Don't look at it. Don't look at
Well,
it.
the scientists are saying it's possible that paying special attention to healthy exercise, Michelle, and eating habits ahead of these waves could lessen their blows, but it's inevitable. When you reach 60, your body's going to take probably a sudden downturn in your health, and you start having more, illnesses and pains, and your skin gets funky.
My exercise is not in the traditional manner of exercise.
I would
okay?
say you need to be studied, because something about you is not right. You do absolutely no exercise, and you look great, and you feel good, and you eat pretty much whatever you want, and you're just doing just fine.
I was in San Diego this past weekend, and I think for 2 or 3 days, we walked 3.5 miles, just wandering around.
It does seem like you walk quite a bit.
I do. When we're on vacation, I love walking. Okay, so one of the things that you always make fun of me about is how I make up names for stuff.
I do.
And
you make up words.
I do make up names, make up words. And I saw this article about better names for existing things. And these just happen to be animals. And I thought these were pretty funny. I would share with you. So a peacock is called a disco chicken. A zebra, a prison donkey.
A prison donkey.
Yeah. Hedgehog is an ouch mouse.
Ouch mouse.
A bat, a sky puppy. A sky puppy.
Oh, God.
A rhino is a battle unicorn. That was funny. Bear is a danger floof.
Danger floof?
Yeah, danger floof.
That's funny.
An ostrich is a pantless thunder goose. Or a speed turkey. That was
So, did you see all these on TikTok?
No, I saw this one somewhere else.
Okay.
A jellyfish is an electric mushroom, which you could say that.
Electric mushroom, yeah.
A snake, of course, there's a couple of them. A nope rope, a danger noodle, or a hiss hose.
I like hiss hose. I'm going to go with hiss hose.
And the skunk is a fart squirrel.
Oh, that's my favorite. Fart squirrel. That's funny. Those are great. I love those.
Weren't you going to give me a challenge or something?
I'm mixed. I'm not sure how you're going to take this.
Oh, why? Is it about exercise?
No, it's not about exercise.
Social media?
It's about social media.
Oh, well, I mean, how am I not supposed to do social media if...
So here was my challenge. I'm going to give you the challenge.
Okay.
And I'd love to hear it, listeners. I'd love to hear what you think about my challenge for Michelle. MallettandMichelle@gmail.com. I think I'd like to see you... I wrote down a week. I'd like to see you go off social media, which would include Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook for 4 days. And report next show any changes you noticed with how you spent your time, how you felt, your frame of mind, and if there were any positive or negative side effects of that.
I do it on the weekend sometimes, like already.
You just check out on it?
Yeah, I don't
but
really.
I'm like, pick a time.
I can't do it during the week because I promote all of it. I promote all of our stuff.
Do it from like Thursday through Sunday.
Thursday through Sunday.
And
okay.
I won't ask you to do any social media. I won't ask you to check anything out. It's actually because you are very plugged into social media, and which is good in a lot of ways. It helps our business. It helps the podcast. But I also think sometimes there's some negative things that maybe weigh on us that don't really affect us. It's more for me to see. Because I could probably do it pretty easy because I'm not really a big fan of social media, but I think it might be a little harder for you. And I'd just like to see if you notice any changes in your frame of mind. Did you read more? Did you relax more? What did you spend your time doing? You know, it's funny that you should say that because when I am off of social media on the weekends, for the most part, unless I'm gone or whatever. And I like to document, like when we go on vacations and stuff, I like to document that stuff because then I like the memories. I'm like, 2 years ago we were here or whatever. Yeah. But I love reading. And I find that if I'm not on social media, I do read a lot more. I noticed the same thing. I currently have 4 books right now that are sitting in the queue that I want to read. you may read one. You might read a whole book in 4 days. If you think, I know for me, I'm not, like I said, I'm not big on social media. I still waste too much time on social media. I'll go, hey, I need to post a picture of that house we just sold. And I'll get on there. And 45 minutes later, I'm still stuck doing it. And I'm like, God, this is 45 minutes of my life I won't ever get back.
How would I ever watch the TikToks that Logan sends me? Logan sends me some pretty funny TikToks.
You have to tell him, Logan, you can't send me TikToks.
No, it's hard.
I see.
No, I will. I could do it. I think I could do it.
I'd like you to just kind of maybe write, like, at the end of the day, just 2 or 3 sentences about anything you noticed, any changes, I just think it'd be a fun experiment.
I think for me, it's more of a habit. And would getting on news sites count as social media? Because that's how I don't get the newspaper.
Depends on
like
what
you
news
do.
site. If you're like on Fox or CNN or MSNBC or or ABC News, a real news site, I don't think that counts.
Okay, but when I get ready in the morning, here's the thing. When I get ready in the morning, I go to my TikTok and I put on ABC News Live and I watch it live on my TikTok because I don't get it through my, I can put it, and so it just plays in the background and I just kind of, like today I was paying attention.
Do you guys have cable TV?
Nope.
Oh.
We have streaming services only, but I pay attention to,
Ooh, that
what
was
that?
interesting.
Yeah,
Never heard that
was
before.
That was my
you
headphone.
opened up your headphone to
I pay attention to, what did I pay attention to? The trial of the shooter that happened in Atlanta. But you know what my little flex is right now? I have a little secret flex. So I couldn't get the Longhorn game this past weekend. We were trying to get even though it was a total blowout and it was a great game. But because it was on ESPN.
Those two things don't usually go together. Total blowout and great game.
Those two
things don't usually.
It was a blowout for it was 30-0, whatever it was. But I watched it on TikTok and live. It's somebody watching the game and they're broadcasting it live.
Oh, really?
And I've done that several times. And I've watched a game because I don't want to pay for ESPN.
Right.
And so, but I think I could do it. I mean, the Cowboys are on. Let's see, Sunday. Okay, let me see. What if I do it for just this weekend? And what if I do it first, baby?
I want you to do it. I want you to include at least, I would like 2 work days. 2 work days. Because the dynamic at home, I think, is different than at work. And I'd want to see, I just interested somebody that's, for better or for worse, you're very plugged into social media, how it affects you. I'm more interested in the outcome of this than the actual, if you can do it or not.
Challenge accepted.
There you go. Now you have to come up with a challenge for me, and it can't be that I can't exercise because you'll hate
No.
You'll
I wouldn't
hate me if I can't.
I would not do that to you.
My mental illness would come right to the surface.
I do have a challenge for you.
Oh.
I did think about it.
Okay.
Already.
Are you giving it to me now?
Yeah, I want you to for the same amount of time.
No chocolate.
No, I want you to order something totally different when you go to a restaurant. And so if I'm having to do 4 days, you're going to have to do 4 times.
Oh my gosh.
4 times.
Something I've never had before.
Other than salmon or a chicken sandwich. Yes.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yep.
Actually, that's a pretty good challenge. I accept. I accept.
And then I want you to write down how you feel.
I felt. Yeah, there's some places where there's only like 2 things on the menu that are even things I would eat.
Well, there you go.
I like it.
There you
Okay,
go.
I will report back at the next. I don't know if I could do it 4 times because we're going to Pigpen after this, and I'm getting my fajita tacos.
I'm getting
my
my
chicken fajita tacos. So, hey, well, let's take a little break and get Justin Donald in here, the lifestyle investor. I'm really excited about this one. I think he's going to give us some good information. I think he comes from a different perspective than I kind of have from my real estate world. And so it's going to be nice to hear his point of view. So sit tight. We'll be right back with Justin Donald.
Are you tired of being left in the dark when the power goes out? Say goodbye to blackouts with Nomic Power Solutions.
As your full-service Generac dealer, they offer individually designed backup power solutions.
From start to finish, they've got you covered.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates.
Nomic Power Solutions. Protect your home, protect your family, stay ready. Proudly sponsored by
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner Montana Elliott is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back with Justin Donald, the best-selling author of The Lifestyle Investor. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Happy to be here. Great to hang out with you and Michelle. Good to chat before we even got on air. We're having a fun time.
Hopefully all our best content is not in that pre-interview part. So we're really excited to have you on and feel like it's a feather in our cap. Hal Elrod introduced us. So Michelle, I think, stalked you again.
I did.
To get you on.
You're a very hard person to stalk, too.
Well, that is probably good.
Yeah, it probably is.
I'm pretty good at it, too.
I like it.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm pretty good at it.
What was so hard?
I was trying to figure out, I like to go back and see like where you grew up and some like little tidbits and stuff. And I got like probably on page 7 of Google and I was still on The Lifestyle Investor. So that's pretty good. Your SEO is working really well.
You're focused, Justin. Yeah. So you live in Austin, right?
I do.
Are you born and raised here?
No, born and raised in Chicago, actually, a suburb of Chicago, and then went to University of Illinois in Champaign.
Okay.
And then took a pit stop in St. Louis for a little while, and then eventually moved here. We've been here almost 8 years.
Why Austin?
Well, when my wife and I were, we were early on. This would have been while we were dating, so we weren't even married yet.
Okay.
We came down here and had friends here and just had such a fun time. We loved the music scene, the food scene, just everything was so great here. The weather, I mean, we just loved it. And often we were coming here when it was cold by us and then warm down here.
Yeah.
And then also just even from like a health standpoint, like the quality of food, the, different dietary options where we lived, there was really none. And we wanted to eat healthy and we're a little more like weirdos, whereas here it's kind of normal and cool. And so we felt like we really fit here. But we visited enough times and just had a blast. And we're like, at some point it'd be really cool to move here. And as we were pivoting out of the main business that I was in at that time, we weren't bound to any location. So it was the first time we were like, well, would we want to move?
Can we do this?
Can we? Yeah, should we? Like, we've never even been in a situation where we could.
Yeah.
What would that look like? And we were out at this wine bar in St. Louis called, I think it was Sasha's Wine Bar. And we were, or actually maybe it was Scarlett's, and we were just having this conversation of like, what would, in an ideal world, what would it look like? Where would we live? What would we do? The world's our oyster right now because we're not tied to this location. And our daughter was young enough that we hadn't really started real school yet. And we're like, well, if we're going to do it, we should do it. And I remember saying to myself, well, there's 3 cities I think I would really enjoy moving to. And my wife's like, well, I just have one on my list.
And it was Austin.
It was on my list too.
Say, I know who's going to win that
That's
argument.
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Do you feel like an honorary Texan since you've been here almost a decade?
I really feel like a Texan. I do. I feel like this is, I mean, I could have been born here. I love it here. You know, we've got a great community, and just we love the people. We love the Southern hospitality. We love just the way people show up here. It's really nice.
I think being
and
a real
special.
Texan is a frame of mind. It's not. It's not that you were born in a certain place. It's
Really?
that you come here. Yes. Yes. Stop. She's a real Texan. No. So the business that you were transitioning out of, that was in St. Louis, right?
Yes.
And had you started the Lifestyle Investor yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. And so the idea came about in Austin, or was this already brewing?
Yeah, you know, it came about in Austin, but more than anything, it came about on a trip. So I was in a season where we had just had a small little exit. We had transitioned from what I had been doing for most of my career at that point in time. I had built this company under the umbrella of another company, similar to what I would assume you guys have done with Keller Williams. And, you know, it was just an interesting season of, I don't really have to work, but I kind of would like to work.
Yeah.
We had rental income, and you know we can get into that story, but we didn't need you know a job, for example. We didn't need a business. So we're like, well, what are we going to do? And so we actually I took a year off. And we went and traveled. We went to 13 different countries and just had a blast. And during that time, I was trying to figure out, well, what's the next chapter? What would I do next?
Yeah.
And I just found over that year that all the things that I do for fun that I enjoy, learning, reading, like all the stuff, just consuming information. The more I learn, the more I want to teach. The more that I teach, the more I kind of go back and want to learn more.
Yeah.
And then I just love doing deals. And so
That's my favorite part.
That's it.
I say that all the time. That if I could write 5 contracts a day, put together deals like that, I'd be as happy as a clam.
yeah.
So did the idea for the book come first, or did the idea for teaching the lifestyle come first?
You know, it's interesting. The idea for the book came first, but I've always been teaching in some way. I've always been coaching. I mean, even in previous businesses or you know, and some of these weren't businesses. They were more like, you know, a consulting company or
Okay.
you know, me having, you know, people that I would coach in real estate, for example. You know, we had a season of life prior to the Lifestyle Investor that was real estate. It was real estate rentals, and we got in early. We've been, you know, in that space for 15, 16 years, something like that. And that's really where we created financial freedom. That was the first, you know, my wife was a teacher, and she had, you know, a rigorous schedule, except in the summers. And in that season of my life, I was very busy in the summers. And so our schedules didn't really line up.
Yeah.
And so we actually got into rentals because I saw an opportunity to buy her time back and create flexibility for both of us to travel and do cool stuff. And then as I did that, I was like, oh, I could buy my own time back too. That's cool. And so we did that through real estate rentals. We actually did that through mobile home park investing.
I saw that. And you got into Austin 8 years ago, and you really got into Austin at a great time as far as real estate as well.
Yeah.
And how do you feel it's going now here in Austin? Is it hard to invest in Austin still?
I think that with anything, there's a relationship aspect to it that if you have the right connections, you know the right people, there are always incredible deals. There's always off-market deals. So I'm of the opinion you can find a great deal anytime. You can find a great deal in a recession. You can find a great deal in a boom season, even though both of which are kind of contrary to popular belief. But we've done well in basically all economic environments. And if you're buying, like if you're an investor and you're investing in an asset, and this is any type of asset, and currently like the monetary supply is just going to keep expanding. We're going to print more money. Those assets become more valuable. So if you're in a situation where you're on the hook, you're over levered, you bought something that doesn't cash flow, well, you might actually be forced to sell at a time that you don't want to sell.
Right.
But if you buy an asset that cash flows, that covers itself, you're never in a season where you actually have to sell. So for the long haul, the value of that asset's going to appreciate. So that to me made the most sense. It's like, how do I get in the game and allow, as monetary supply expands, asset values expand. So how can I not be in cash? Because cash is going to become less.
No kidding.
Right? I need to buy assets. And how do I buy assets in a safe way that I'm not over levered, that cash flow, that cover everything we need to cover, or at least cover that investment itself? Because over time, what I bought 15, 16 years ago, not only have we almost paid it completely off, but the value of it has gone up substantially since then.
Yeah.
But we've never had to sell the recessions, what happened in the financial crisis, what has happened in all these seasons never forced us to have to sell. Although the first real estate deal I ever did, I did in the peak of that season and learned a valuable lesson and lost a bunch of money on a home that I bought. And
is it because you bought it at the peak and
yes.
then the value went down? But and then the rent.
I didn't buy it as a rental. I bought it as a home.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
then I tried to turn it into. It was a condo in Lincoln Park in Chicago.
Okay,
but I didn't buy it based on a parameter of being a rental, so it was a negative cash flow.
So your only upside on that was appreciation.
Yes, and it wasn't appreciated.
Yeah, got it.
So I learned a valuable lesson very early on, that the way I bought wasn't the best way to buy. It didn't cash flow. If I bought it for rental purposes, I probably wouldn't have bought it. I bought it for personal reasons, but only lived there 3 months because I had another opportunity and moved.
Yeah.
And so with that deal, I actually showed up at so finally, it was just this negative toll of always every month coming to the table, paying more for this. I'm not even living there. The rent's not covering it. I had a roof issue. I had a that issue.
That's the way those things go.
So I show up finally to close this thing years down the road. And I actually had to come to the closing table with it was about $130,000. It was brutal.
Yeah. And that's the worst mistake you ever made. So you had a pretty good upside from there.
Not the worst mistake I've ever made. The first big mistake I've ever made.
Okay.
Don't worry. I've made many other mistakes.
Have you found that, because I own some single family rentals, one is just a regular long-term rental, and then two that we do short-term rentals in. Have you found that the mobile home parks are the easiest ones to get into that have cash flow? Because even like the single family homes, it's hard to find them that have a decent cash flow. You can get them where they're almost break even, but to have a positive cash flow where you could have 10 of those and stop working, that's pretty hard to come by.
Yeah, single family home rentals are tougher. You really need to have scale. And, from my experience, and I've been in that space, I've invested in that directly, and I've invested that indirectly or as an LP. And then, we have some rentals even today.
Yeah.
And actually, we own a bunch of homes in and around our mobile home parks as well. So, I have a lot of experience with those. But really, it's like you got to get to that first scale of 10, and then the magic really doesn't happen till like 40, 50.
Okay.
But that's a lot of cash to outlay to get to that level. So mobile home parks were just a lot easier. The cash flow is greater. I was buying it much better cap rates. And it's just less work, less maintenance.
So, but you're not doing all that work, right? Do you have to hire the right person? Because I know those things are pretty labor intensive. You've got people coming and going. Sometimes they leave their mobile home there. There's all this stuff. Things break down. You're probably on septic systems and all that stuff. Do you have to hire the right person to watch that investment for you?
You certainly do, but in the mobile home park space, I actually like to own the mobile home park and have the tenants own their home. So they're then in charge of maintaining it. But also, since they own it, there's this pride of ownership, right? If you do rentals in that space, you can tell if you went through a mobile home park, you could probably pick out which homes are rentals and which ones the tenants or residents own.
Sure.
And so this pride of ownership really matters to the aesthetics of the park and even just the care of that specific unit.
Yeah. How many do you think you own now?
So we've got a top 75 portfolio in the U.S. I think we've got around 20 parks and around 1,500 lots.
That's great. I looked at one in Wimberley once and decided it was just way too much work for me. But I would have been the guy at the top trying, everything that breaks would have ended up being my problem. But so then obviously you got a great background in the real estate investment side. The teaching side, though, tell me about how you came about that. Like, when did you decide, I'm doing well with this now, I got to go teach people how to do it?
Well, it's interesting. I have found in my life that the biggest problem that I needed to solve for me personally that would just allow me to relax was that financial component. Like, it cost me X amount of dollars to live. Mm-hmm. How can I replace that with passive income?
Right.
And how can I actually not have to work? Because the moment I can let my guard down and let my brain relax and not feel like I have to figure out a way to cover my life, that's when my best ideas have come. That's when I can really get into a true, creative space.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. We had lifestyle, for us, it started out buying a park that replaced my wife's income, bought one that replaced our survival income, bought another one that replaced our current at that time lifestyle income.
Okay.
And then we bought a couple more that really covered our earned income at that point in time, everything that we were earning in the business. And so once we got to that point, it was more, how do you want to spend your time? Like, you don't have to solve the finances to be able to figure that out, but it was much easier for me to do that. And then my mind could roam freely and figure out, well, what do I enjoy doing? What is effortless, or what is fun? What do I do when time just disappears? And so solving that financial equation allowed me to really get to the space of, well, what do I want to do the rest of my life? And I love people. I love relationships. I love to learn. I love to teach. And so it just seemed fitting that was it. And after a year of tracking my habits and patterns, it was very clear that, starting some sort of community like this, mm-hmm. that we learn together, we do investments together, we do tax strategy together, that to me just seemed like a great gift. Like, that would be fun. And I never dreamed in a million years it'd become as big as it is, that it'd become, an actual brand like it is today. Because at the beginning, it was just a few friends hanging out, doing deals together and, having a good time. But it really morphed and had an idea of its own.
What do you think, or through all your seminars and your book signings and people that have come up to you, what do you think is the most prevalent reoccurring theme that people want to know, the most confusing thing about even just starting investing? You talked about your Lincoln Park property, and it's like, how did you even know? Okay, you learned that lesson, you got out of that lesson, and then you lost all that money. But how did you know? Okay, so this was a hard lesson for me to learn. Where was that? Where was that connection that all of a sudden that you made that made you go to the next level?
So that's a great question, and I think that I can give this on a few different levels. So one of them is, I think that I have learned that whatever the majority of people are doing is probably not what I should do. Right?
I say that all the time.
Yeah. So how do I be, contrarian to that? How do I look a different way? Because most people don't have finances figured out. They don't have work-life balance. Mm-hmm. They don't have all this stuff figured out. So anytime my friends and sometimes even mentors would be like, "What? You're going to do that? That's crazy." I'm kind of like, "Oh, maybe I'm onto something here."
Yeah.
And so the first time that happened was buying my first mobile home park. People thought I was crazy. And I, but early on, I was really nervous. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night sometimes, in cold sweats, like, what am I doing? Am I throwing all my money away? But the logic just kicked in. It's this whole idea, if someone else can do it, then you can too. If you have their playbook or have some of their playbook. And I just drew confidence from that. So I lost a lot of money on the first deal, not mobile home park, but on the first real estate purchase. But and friends are always like, well, why'd you keep going? Well, I kept going because I saw all these people that were doing it and doing a good job
and making it happen.
Yeah. And what I did was just like me trying to figure it out. Well, what if I actually do what these other people are doing? I just copycat, then maybe I can do it. And then once we built up, a bunch of passive income, my friends were like, oh, great. Now you've doubled up. You're making twice as much. And I said, no, actually, I'm going to leave this behind. I'm actually not going to remain in this business. And they're like, are you crazy? You can make twice as much. But the goal, again, was never to make twice as much. Mm-hmm. The goal was to buy my time back. Oh. I didn't need more money. I needed more time. So that was another time that it was kind of like this contrarian view to the public. And, a lot of people are like, oh, get in the stock market, have a financial advisor. But that actually was a big failure for me as well.
Yeah.
And so I went a different way and said, I can't outsource my financial education. That was a losing equation for me. They made money and I lost money. That doesn't work.
No.
And so I'm like, I need to that's got to be in-house. I need to be responsible for my own financial education. And even if it's a little bit that I'm learning here and there, like it'll add up over time. And so that was another one where it's like everyone said, just get a financial advisor. And I said, well, I'm just going to actually figure out how to do it myself.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of these stories. Even when I got into, investing in my first whole life policy,
Mm-hmm.
when people are like, oh, that's crazy. You don't need that. You're not even married. You don't even have kids, because it was early when I started that. But once again, the wealthiest people I knew were doing that. And then all the people who weren't were telling me not to do it. So I just kept following the clues, paying attention to track records.
Well, you sound fearless.
Yeah. Well,
do you consider yourself fearless?
I would say that there was fear in the beginning, but I gained confidence every time that when I did something different, it worked. I was like, oh, okay, I actually need to bank on myself, right? I need to bet on myself here, because I do think I can do it. So it's not that there wasn't fear, and there was tons of fear in the beginning. But again, it's this whole idea that success leaves clues. So if someone else is doing it and doing it at a high level, and they're willing to share what they're doing,
I was just going to say that.
I think I can be 70% as good as them.
Yeah. I've found that a lot of times the people that are really good at something, they're not bashful about sharing the lessons that they've learned with you. So it really, to answer Michelle's question, probably the answer when people come up to you and say, what's the first step? It's changing your mindset, right?
Yeah.
And not thinking, well, that guy has the magic formula, but he'll never tell me. I bet if you go up and ask him, he'll tell you what the magic formula is.
That's right.
And you can learn these things. I mean, we're surrounded by people that are brilliant in what they do. And if you just spend 5 minutes with them, they'll tell you.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%. They want to give back. I mean, at a certain point, people so many people chase money thinking that's the thing that's going to buy them happiness,
that's
right?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
The money is the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the people that come into a lot of money are like, oh, it was really cool when I earned it, but like now it's gone. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
It's almost a letdown of, oh, I thought it was going to feel different. I thought it was going to be different. And so I find with those people, they want to give back. Like they actually want to invest in teaching people lessons. And I also find that most of the time they realize people won't actually do what they say. And so they're even more pleased when you take their advice, you follow up with them and say, hey, I did what you said. What else would you do? Or what's next? They're even more eager to help out, because most people don't ask in the first place. And then the ones that do don't go do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we see that all the time. Somebody asks you for good advice and you give it, and then they don't do it.
That's right.
Yeah, we do. I have a very, very important question, because it's also something that I struggle with. Why do you think people spend money on dumb shit?
Oh, I was just going to line. I just have it. Stop buying stupid shit. I just was going to underline that. Go ahead.
I love that you came to both of you have that on your list. I think a lot of people are just trying to solve for the happiness equation. Is this going to make me happy right now? And by the way, maybe it does temporarily. Maybe they feel good. Maybe, you get some, the endorphins are pumping, or the dopamine hits and you're like, oh, that felt really good. Mm-hmm. But, with anything, like, it's going to go bad, or it's not as cool. A new model comes up, or you just become familiar with it, or you see your friend's new home or car or whatever, and now you don't like yours as much. So the material stuff just never is going to do it long term. But I think some people fall in that trap of it and may not even recognize that that's what they're doing. But it does feel good in the moment.
I agree with that. I think for a long time in my late 20s, early 30s, when you're hanging around other like people and you're like, oh my gosh, they're Dallionaires, or they're this and they've got a pool, or whatever you think defines happiness. And now I've been married 31 years. I have 3 good kids who all have careers and good spouses, and it's like that to me is like that's good. That feels
your
good.
Perception of what wealth, air quotes, changes as you get older too. Like your definition of wealth, Justin, is that you manage your time how you want. And so somebody that has all the pool and the big houses and the $100,000 a year in property taxes, they're probably not running their own life. They're chasing probably check to check to check to live that lavish lifestyle.
Rich people have a lot of money. Wealthy people have a lot of time.
Oh, that's good. Ooh.
That's my big differentiator.
Yeah.
I had one about what is the difference between people that are actually rich and people that are just acting rich.
What's the difference?
What's the difference, like, that you see? Because you're around a lot of really high wealth people, and then you're around also probably people that are kind of the new rich, right? So, do you see a difference the way they treat people, waiters, for instance, or the cars that they drive, or the houses that they live in?
Money to me is a magnifier, and it magnifies who that person is generally. So I see a lot of people. The ecosystem I live in is a world of a lot of very wealthy people. Many of them are not very happy. And so you can see that wealth doesn't, like, the money's not doing what people perceive that it's doing. Like they're not on the inside 9 times out of 10, right? So they don't see that. But I also think for a lot of those people, they don't actually own their things, their possessions, their materials, own them.
Yeah.
And so now it's like they've got to keep up. They've got a mortgage payment. They've got another mortgage payment. They've got a car payment. They've got another one. They've got a payment for their boat. And what looks on the outside like, wow, they've got it all made, on the inside for a lot of these people is they're literally just playing a game that they're barely getting by every month. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And a lot of the people that flaunt it, a lot of people that have the nice things. I've never, material possessions for me have never really been like the big thing. I love to spend money on experiences. That to me is awesome. On
so
people,
you didn't
on
pull
memories.
Up in a Ferrari out
I
front.
did not.
Okay.
I did not.
Just checking.
I'm sure it's not a Hyundai either.
I'm also not a big car guy.
Really?
It's funny. I never really had a big, like with cars, they never did a whole lot for me. So I never felt like I needed to splurge. I always had a car that I enjoyed being in. But, and I drive a Tesla. I really like Teslas.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is the first time I can ever say I actually like having a really smart car. So it's not even, I like the look of it, but I like all the features. So the first time in my life I can say, I'm a car guy. I'm really not, but I like all that is packaged up in that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think even if you're not a car guy, you probably appreciate the technology that went into that to make it fun to drive.
Yeah.
Side note, Steve's a car guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in and around and driven a bunch of really cool cars, but that's never been a thing that has driven me. Now, taken a really cool trip with some friends. We did this awesome trip where we went to Monaco to Formula One.
Oh, you did?
Where we got to see, not only the race, but all the cool cars, there,
that's cool.
the gold-plated cars
sound,
that a lot of the Saudis have. And there's just like all these, it's, like the Saudi princes have their fleet that's literally gold-plated vehicles, and it's really cool to see. I have no desire for it, but what I loved about that was the trip, the experience, the friends we went with, all the really crazy people that we hung out with. Went to the Cannes Film Festival, went to Formula One, got a chance to be around kind of the who's who, and it was just a memorable experience.
Do you ever just stop yourself and just go, is this my life right now? Like, is this really what I'm living? And then you look at your wife and you look at your daughter and like, gosh, I'm a lucky guy that I get to, but you've worked hard for it.
I've worked hard, but I look at it as a blessing. And I also look at, we've done some cool stuff and these memories are going to last. And I love that. But I'm not like, I think some people think that they're untouchable. I recognize that, like, I could lose anything at any point in time. Like, I'm very thankful for what I have, and I certainly know that times change, the economy changes, the way that I invested, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Your health could change.
Yes, all this stuff changes. So it's like I want to be thankful that I have what we have, but I want to also be prudent in the way that maybe it doesn't continue this way. Maybe it changes. Maybe it's different. And because of that mindset, maybe I operate a little differently.
Yeah. Nobody is on and near the end of their life, maybe on their deathbed going, I wish I'd have bought one more Lamborghini. You're thinking about, you remember that time we went to Cannes or Monaco or whatever? Those are the things. That's the good stuff in life.
Yeah.
I've found that, and you can let me know your thoughts on this. People, they aspire to make a certain amount of money, and then when they get that amount of money, they spend it, and then they aspire to get to the next level. Sometimes, not all people, and then they spend it, and they're always just like living right to the edge of their means, even though their means are sometimes 10 times more than what they ever imagined. Do you see people doing that?
Oh, all the time. That's the majority. I mean, take a look at anyone that's listening, like take a look at your life right now. How much more do you spend today than what you spent, 5 years ago? Yeah. Lifestyle creep is a real thing, and it is hard. It is really hard when you make more to then say, oh, maybe I should save more or invest more versus like, well, today I could take another trip. I could go to, I could buy this new car. We could get a new house. We can upgrade. That's what most people do. Yeah. And then you fall back into the same situation you are in where maybe you're not saving or investing as much as you could or should and living paycheck to paycheck. And that might be extreme. Maybe it's not paycheck to paycheck, but maybe it's like, most people don't even have a year's worth of money set aside that if something imploded, their life would be okay, right?
Yeah, they're screwed.
So I feel like until we get there, we should be careful about upgrading the lifestyle.
I agree. And most of the time, the lifestyle that people have is pretty good, but yet they still aspire to go to the next level.
Well, a lot of people now, given the economy, I've heard over and over again, it's like I've made more money than I've ever made in my life, and I have less money than I ever have in my life. Do you think that it matters who's in office, the office of the president per se, as to what goes on in our economy? I mean, does that office, in your opinion,
when you're looking at your formula for what you're going to buy and what you're going to sell, does that roll into your equation?
So I can answer this in a few different directions. So number one, there's always great deals all the time, always good investments, no matter who's in office. I think statistically, you can actually, I've measured this, and it is very clear that the economy performs better under a Republican president. Right. So that's not opinion. That is fact. Based on, tons of data points. Now, that delta isn't necessarily that great. And there's actually some data that says having the balance of not having, full blown Republican across the board. It's actually better to have, one House Democratic,
Right.
Republican president or vice versa of that. So, I definitely don't want to take this in a political direction, but there's heavy data that would suggest that is the case. And even if you look at, I just spent some time with Tom Lee of Fundstrat, who's, an incredible economist and is very data driven. And even his data suggests that the market and the economy is going to perform a lot better with Trump in than with Kamala in.
Yeah.
And even you can look at things beyond just our indicators. You can bet on anything today. So you can actually look, at all these different indicators on like who's favored and what's happening in the economy. But bottom line is you can make money no matter who's in office. There are great investments no matter what. No one should freak out because this party got in or I wanted this person and it's this other person. So I wouldn't ever be in the victim or scarcity mindset.
I think that's huge. Yeah.
But I do think, from the and I'll be careful not to share my views, but a Republican, if you just look at Harris versus Trump's financials around like what they're going to do from taxation, from business, all that.
Capital gains. Yeah.
There's a reason, I think, why you're going to see a better performance with a president that is, pro business or
pro investment.
Right.
Yeah. That whole proposal about the tax on unrealized capital gains that they're trying to sell because it's only going to impact 1,000 people in the country, which we know means eventually it'll impact all of us, is so anti-investment. It would just cripple the investment economy, I think.
It would, but at the end of the day, it's never going to pass. It's just never going to pass. So,
but just the idea that somebody would float that as, hey, this would be good for the United States. You're right. Let's not get too political on that. But yeah, some of the things that come out of Washington sometimes, like, these are supposed to be the smartest leaders on the planet, and this is what they come up with? I
read in one of your, or saw in one of your podcasts that you said Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. But really, what are our options? That's kind of what we were taught growing up, right? Watching my grandmother just live off of Social Security, and I know your whole investor lifestyle, or lifestyle investor. But what are our options? If you're a 25-year-old kid, you get your first job, you're married and stuff like that, and you think that you're supposed to invest in a 401k and you're going to have your Social Security and it's going to be there when you
Isn't
retire?
That just a big trap that people fall into?
Yeah, well, as a 25-year-old, you're likely not going to receive Social Security.
No,
right?
That's true.
I don't know that program will be in place then. If it is, it's going to be way different than it is now, and the amount of money is going to be way different based on inflation. So number one, it's a failed program. It's still working now, but they're going to have to print money. The government's going to have to print money to make it work. This is not outlandish or conspiracy theory type stuff. This is based on the Fed's own data that they share based on when this runs out.
The age that I hit retirement.
Yeah, it is. As soon as Michelle retires, Social Security will cease to exist.
Now there are a lot of people that are freaking out, like, oh, money's gonna get printed, it's gonna be fine. Like that's gonna be fine. Our financial education, the whole financial system, all financial services, it is based on the education that Wall Street wants you to have. And Wall Street wants you to give them as much money as you can, as frequently as you can, okay? And they want you to take as little back as you can, or cash out.
Right.
And so people are learning in college, people are learning, from financial advisors, people are learning from commercials, people are learning from all these different, companies, organizations, this one way of doing it that, quite frankly, is it underperforms. Like if you look at alternative investments, they outperform the S&P 500 over the long haul by at least 50%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a significant difference, but most people don't realize that. And by the way, I believe in our economy. I think long term we're going to do a good job. But most people emotionally can't handle it. They want to pull money out when things are dipping, or they put money in at the peak. And emotionally, most people are never going to be able to, like the vast majority of the population is not going to be able to make emotionally intelligent decisions in a crisis. They're just not.
Right.
So the likelihood that someone or timing is off and you are about to retire, like you just said, and there's a crash. Well, there's no way in your lifetime you're going to make that money back.
That's right.
So it's not that I'm against that. It's that if you look at the wealthiest families in the world, and let's look at just in the U.S., and I study this data all the time. This is the stuff we go over in the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind, is we teach, what do the wealthiest people do? How do they allocate their assets? And most of the wealthiest families only have 15 to 25% of their net worth in the stock market. And by the way, the reason it's in the stock market is, one, they think long-term it should play out. But two, they can borrow against it at really good rates to buy other alternative investments and assets. And there's not a capital gain because that's debt. Okay. They're not selling to buy it. And then, what most people don't realize, and what's great is UBS's report just came out, Goldman's report just came out, JP Morgan's report just came out for all their family offices. And a family office is the organization that runs the finances and basically the livelihood of the wealthiest people. Okay. And basically anywhere from 46 to 59% of the wealth that the wealthiest people have is actually invested in alternative investments.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So most people, and by the way, this is the interesting thing. Wall Street has called these alternative investments. I'm using air quotes here.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want you to think that this is not the main way to do it. It's like an alternate way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's an alternative to what everyone does.
Like these people went rogue and invested in this weird stuff, in our stocks.
So even the language around it is pretty crazy. Wow. When the wealthiest people, the alternative investments are actually the majority of the portfolio.
Yeah.
And alternative investments, meaning real estate.
Yeah, real estate would fall under that. And what you would also find is when you dig in deeper, real estate has its own categories, usually 15 to 25% of the net worth of most wealthy people. Private equity is generally, let's call it 20 to 30%. Okay. You have private credit at like 5 to 10%. You have fixed income at 10 to 15%, cash at 10 to 15%. Maybe we can even call it 5 to 15%. But it makes up this pie chart. But if you actually section off what would be considered alternative investments, so real estate, private equity, private credit, think about it. Like UBS, even on their global report, but you can look at just the U.S. stats, 59%.
That's amazing.
Of the wealthiest people in the United States are sitting in alternative investments. It's
almost like the majority of our economy, the people in our economy are brainwashed into thinking one way, and your mission is to teach them the other way, which is much better for them.
Yeah, and it's not to say don't invest in the stock market.
Yeah.
It's to say don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Because most people do. They have it in a 401k or an IRA, and it's in mutual funds, and that's what they're banking on for their retirement.
Do you get pushback from the elite, from the wealthiest people, to kind of keep your mouth shut?
Probably not, because they're probably doing the same things you are.
Because you're educating. You're out there educating. It's not only that you're practicing what you're preaching, but you're teaching other people. So, do you have you had that have you had that pulled in the back room? Listen, Justin,
be quiet. Keep our secrets. I really haven't. What is interesting? I mean, this is a fascinating thing. Is I never thought this was going to be the reality. I thought, oh man, financial advisors are going to look at me and they're not going to be happy because I'm, maybe steering people away from them. But the irony is we have had so many very smart, very successful financial advisors join our mastermind
Wow.
to learn how to do alternative investments.
Wow. Are they then going back and advising their clients to do these things?
So one, they're doing it with their own assets, and two, they're exposing these different strategies, these different investments to their client base.
So when you do the networking or masterminds or whatever, do you have them focused? Like, one of my questions was, what's the typical makeup of one of your classes? Is it mostly people looking, I want to own mobile home parks, or is it financial people that want to go out and teach their clients? What's the makeup?
Well, the vast majority of our mastermind are entrepreneurs. We're probably sitting at somewhere around 70-75% entrepreneurs. Probably half of them have had an exit and are sitting in cash, don't know what to do with it. They've been successful in entrepreneurship, but don't know how to invest. And maybe they've tried to invest and have lost a lot of money.
Right.
And they're like, I need to figure this out. And you've got the other half of those entrepreneurs that still have a business kicking off cash. They need to figure out what to do with it. You've got probably 25% that are on the, highly paid professional route. So maybe they're a corporate executive, maybe they are a doctor, attorney, a financial advisor. And by the way, some financial advisors, are going to be on the corporate side. Some financial advisors own their own practice. So they're going to be on the entrepreneurial side. But, that's kind of the makeup. But so we have people that are W-2 income, and then we have people that are, business income.
Okay.
So we get a little bit of everything, but it is, we are seeing more and more people that are having exits, joining the mastermind because they just don't know what to do, want help. And by the way, we do a ton with tax strategy that I think people see our group and they're like, I want the passive income. I want the deals. But I actually think the tax strategy we do, it like blows away, the deals that we do. Because there's a saving in many cases, millions or tens of millions of dollars.
So by exits, you mean somebody that was an expert in one particular part of something and they grew a business. And then one day somebody came along and said, we'll give you $100 million for your business, and they sold it, and they're like, well, what do I do now? That's what you mean by exits?
Right. Yeah. That's right. And then, but we also have that 25% or so that are on the W-2 side that want to convert over. They want to move, from a corporation owning their time to them owning their time. And sometimes it comes with business acquisition. Sometimes it comes with maybe pivoting out and just starting like a consulting business. So they're on their own making what they would charge, but the company's taking the majority of it, right?
So how would you break that down for somebody, the W-2, the lower level employee W-2? They don't really necessarily have a good little kitty of money to leverage or to invest. How would you steer those people to even get started?
Well, I think network matters. I think mentorship matters. The more you're hanging out with people that are, investing or starting companies or just in that space, the more you're going to think like that. So I remember when I first got started, it was very intimidating. I didn't have money. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And because of that, it took me a lot longer to get going than if I had realized what I know today, which is if you have a great asset, if you found a great piece of real estate, if you have a great idea, if you found a company that you're buying and it's a great price, the money's the easiest part. Yeah. I thought that was the hardest part when I didn't have it. But now I can't wait for people to come to me and say, hey, I don't have the money, but this is the business or this is the
idea.
Real estate or the idea. I'm like, oh, amazing. The money is the easiest part. So I encourage anyone who doesn't have the money, just go find something of value because you can raise the money. Go find a rental property and raise the money.
You got to expand on that. Raise the money. That doesn't mean going down to Main Street Bank and walking in there and saying, hey, I want to buy this
going
house.
down
What
to
does
the
that mean,
payday
raise
loan.
the money?
Well, yeah. By the way, from the standpoint of a business, it actually could be that, right? Like you might find someone. By the way, another thing to consider is in a season of high interest rates, it is very easy or much easier to find someone that will sell or finance or finance, a purchase, whether it be real estate or a business. So I know many people that have bought a business with no money down, and then they have terms of what they're going to pay that owner. That owner doesn't have to work anymore, but they're paying them for X amount of years till they hit a certain number, right? And I've done this in real estate. I've done a variation of that. Well, not no money down, but very little down.
Right.
I've done that in business, and I've done that on real estate. So that exists first and foremost. So you're not even raising money. Secondly, if you have a good deal, a bank can likely, even with, SBA loans, like there's very little that you need to put down. And if the business is right, the banks will give you the money, right? If it is as good of a deal as you think it is, and by the way, if the banks aren't giving you the money, maybe it's not as good of a deal as you think it is.
Yeah.
Banks are smart.
Yeah.
Right? They're conservative.
Yeah.
And they're smart. The bankers are. So, the other thing you can do is you can just you can raise the down payment. So maybe you're using a bank, or maybe you're doing a seller finance, but there is a down payment, and maybe that down payment is 20%.
Right.
Well, now you can crowdsource the funding to get there, and you can go to friends, you can go to people that that have investable dollars, you can go to people that have the 401ks that have self-directed them, or IRAs that have self-directed them, and they can invest those dollars into it.
How do you pay those people back? Like, so in the crowdsourcing, so you need to raise, just keep it simple, 20 grand, and you have 4 friends that give you 5 grand a piece. Do they own a percentage of that? And then when you cash it out, what's the typical formula? And maybe there isn't a typical formula to pay those people back.
Yeah. I mean, I do think there's a typical formula. I mean, it depends. Are you raising it? So if I'm buying something, I have to first make the decision. If I'm raising money, am I raising debt or am I raising equity?
Okay.
If I'm raising debt, well, I'm not giving any equity away, and I'm going to pay them an interest rate. And then eventually I'm going to be able to, if I can add the value or do what I need to do, I can refinance it and pay them off.
Right.
Okay. But during the meantime, I'm going to buy something that has the cash flow to make the payments to them.
Okay.
If I'm raising equity, which is most of the time what's going to happen, especially in a deal like this, right? You raise $5K from 4 friends, $20,000. Now you got a down payment. You buy a house, or you buy whatever, some income producing property. You would likely cut them in on the equity. So you're going to have, the bank or the seller carry the note. You're going to have payments over a period of time on that.
Right.
But the equity dollars that come in as that down payment would be sitting on the cap table, or capital, basically saying the ownership table of they own X percent of it based on how much you raised, the value of it, what the appraisal says, how much debt you're raising.
So in simple numbers, you raised $20,000, you bought a property with seller financing for $100,000. 5 years later, that property because it's worth $300,000, you sell it, they get $15,000 each, but basically plus the interest along the way. Yeah. One of my questions for you was, do people come up to you all the time and ask you for simple hacks for creating wealth? Is that something people ask you?
Yeah, I get one very common question I get is, what's the best investment you've ever done? So I get that one all the time. Or I get hey, I have a deal and this is what's going, then they have a specific thing that they want to run through and get my opinion on. So those are probably the 2 most common questions that I get. But people always have questions, and my goal is to do my best to always answer them, because I just want to give people, the tools and the confidence that yes, they can do it too.
I have a question as far as, being in a smaller town here in Dripping Springs, and we have a lot of really good local banks. When you are looking to kind of go out and take that kind of loan and that risk, is it better to go through a locally owned bank versus a national bank?
I love local banks. I've got a great relationship with many of them. That's how I got started. That's how we've bought most of our real estate. And I also think that local banks, A, know the area better, and B, are going to be more negotiable and flexible with their terms.
Without a doubt.
So I'm always going to get several quotes, and I'm going to put the banks up against each other, and I'm going to get them to work hard to earn my business, and I'm going to get a better better set of terms because of that. But a local bank is much more likely to work with you than a regional or a national bank.
Yeah, without a doubt. If you go to a regional or national bank, they're looking for stuff that fits inside that box, where the local people will give you a lot more leeway to look at.
And it's kind of like take it or leave it, whereas the local banks are like, no, we want
please.
it.
Yeah,
please give us the business.
Yeah, they want to lend the money if it makes sense. Yeah.
And they also want to build a relationship, because you do this one deal and it goes well, and if it meets their parameters, they probably think it's going to go well. Well, now who are you going to go to for your next
And
deal?
you go to a national bank, the guy that helped you then isn't necessarily going to be the same guy that's going to help you. The guy at the local bank, you're going to see at your kid's baseball game.
I have never once ever in countless transactions, 50 plus transactions, I have never once found a national bank with better terms than a local bank.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah. And a lot less hoops to jump through. That's the other thing, is like you go to the underwriters at a national bank will make you come up with like the clothes you wore when you were in middle school kind of thing. I mean, they want everything in your history, and local banks don't do that.
I think they have a better pulse on what's going on in the community, especially in Dripping Springs.
Exception to the rule on that, I guess I will give a shout out to City National Bank, who on buying a home, your primary residence.
Yeah, that's different.
They, some of the bigger ones can do some huge things, and they were doing stuff that no one else was doing, and they were really generous.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Justin, what's a typical day look like for you now?
Well, I love to have projects and things that I'm passionate about that I do, real work on. But I really appreciate my time, and I really appreciate my flexibility. So I like having extended weekends every weekend. So generally Mondays, Fridays are just like hangout days for me. And then Tuesdays through Thursdays
are work days.
I work. Yeah. So I have a nice long weekend. Sometimes Mondays will be like, a creative day, but it's like nothing's ever scheduled except pickleball. We talked about this earlier.
Pickleball.
I got a nice pickleball game from 12 to 2 on Monday. And sometimes I'll go earlier in the morning too. But, it gives me a place to get stuff done or just relax, do whatever. And then Fridays, I love hanging out with people. Like that's just a fun day for me. Before this, I had a lunch meetup. Before that, I had a breakfast meetup.
Wow.
And it's just with friends, just hanging out.
That's so cool. To be able to manage your time like that, I think is almost everybody's dream. To be able to say, you know what, I'm going to take a couple extra days off and not do. When you say creative, what does that mean? What do you like? Is that?
Well, if I'm in a writing season, so with
Are you
the
writing
Lifestyle
another
Investor
book?
book, I just came out with this updated and expanded edition. So I'm not writing right now, but that book, took some time, and that was a day where, that's fun work for me, and so that was a blast. But I'm not writing now. So now maybe it's creating, we created this tax masterclass, and we created a vetting deals course. And so I'll spend time maybe coming up with those ideas, coming up with some of that content, and then maybe I'll film, sometime between Tuesday and Thursday. Okay. Right.
I love that you give back to, I guess, the people that give to you. And the question I have for you is, why did you agree to be on this little local podcast? Why not?
Hal's a good friend. He thought that you guys are great people and enjoyed his time. And he's like, why don't you, if you have any interest in doing it? I was like, yeah, that'd be great. That's fun. And I love podcasts. We talked about this off air. Yeah. This is one of my favorite mediums for consumption, but it's also one of my favorite mediums for content creation. Yeah. So I love having a podcast. I love having guests on. I love what I can learn from them. But then I think that we have this I'm going to call it a responsibility that when we figured some things out, we got to share those things. And so, I look often at the world in grids or categories. And so I think most people have a hard time making money, but the people that figure out how to make money, they're generally not good at managing money. Oh. The people who are good at managing money and making money are generally not good at multiplying money. Okay. And then from there, whenever you figure out how to really multiply and figure out how to really grow cash flow and wealth, well, then you've got a responsibility to make money matter. Right. And so how do you make money matter? Well, you do it based on the impact in giving and philanthropic things that you do, but you also do it based on your time and how you can educate and teach other people.
Your time, treasures, and talents.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Besides pickleball and writing, well, actually, I want to go on the writing thing. Did you have a background in writing? Did you take writing class? So, I mean, writing a book like this, that's a big endeavor.
Well, it's funny. I don't even consider myself an author. And my friends are like, you're an author. You wrote a book. And I'm
Hello,
like, but
you were on the Wall Street Journal's number one. You're an
USA
author.
Today,
official.
yeah.
But the story of how I wrote the book is actually kind of funny. I actually didn't sit down to write it. I hit record on my phone, and I literally just walked around Town Lake just talking into my phone about ideas that I had, things I wanted to talk about. And so the book actually came from, just hours and hours of me just talking into a recording device.
No way.
That's it. Yeah. So it's funny when people are like, oh, so you sat down and you wrote. No, I actually get my best ideas when I'm moving.
So he's the crazy person walking around Town Lake talking to himself.
Yeah.
Just follow him around.
Well, my big takeaway from this is sort of breaking the mold on things, and you're doing it on so many different levels, but we're all like trained from a very young age. Like, if you're going to be an author, you got to sit at a typewriter for 10 hours a day. And,
right.
And there you go. You're breaking the mold on that too. You just talk into a recording device and boom, you wrote a book.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's
and
very
that
cool.
book that I never thought was going to sell more than just, I was hopeful that it would sell some copies, right?
Yeah.
But, in my head, I'm like, I'll be really happy, if I have, a few hundred people buy it. And then I had a buddy say, well, virtually like 98% of books don't even get to 10,000 copies.
Did you have to
sold.
self-publish, or did you?
I self-published.
You did.
Well, actually, in the final hour, I co-published with someone, but was able to retain all the rights.
Was there a moment where something happened where the book just took off?
That's what happened. So some people basically read it online and were like, this changed my whole thinking. I had an epiphany, or, my mind is blown. And so there was enough of that going out on social media that it created this big wave. So all of a sudden in 2 to 3 days, so I thought in a lifetime, if I could get to 10,000 books, I'd be really happy, because my friend said then, that's
You've
good.
made it into the 1%.
Yeah, or top 2% for that.
2%, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that sounds cool.
Okay, psycho.
And then in 3 days, we'd sold over 10,000 copies.
And that was all totally organic.
Yeah.
It's just people reading the book going, hey, look at me. This changed my life. You guys have to read this.
Well, I would also say I probably had some good friends that, also wanted to help support.
Yeah.
They bought it. They probably shared, plenty of it on social media. So I'd say I had some really, some fans, some good friends, and that went a long way. And by the way, I said from day one that all the proceeds of the Lifestyle Investor book were going to go to fight human trafficking.
Yeah.
And so this book now, as of January last year, is the top 1% of all books ever sold based on volume. And so just what that book has been able to do, it's been able to generate literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that have gone to these humanitarian efforts.
Amazing.
So that is what I'm most proud of.
That's
what do you
really
think
great.
Your family, not your wife, not your daughter, what do you think your origin family, how do they describe you? When they say, well, what does Justin do for a living?
Well, it's really funny because I was always pretty quiet about how well we were doing financially. I mean, my friends didn't know, my family didn't know. I mean, no one knew. And there was this big article that came out on Entrepreneur magazine that called me the Warren Buffett of lifestyle investing.
Yeah.
And it was a very flattering title. And just for the record, for anyone watching or listening, I am nowhere close to Warren Buffett. If I can be 1/132nd of Warren Buffett, I'm going to be super happy. But it was such a flattering title, and I didn't realize how much info had been gathered, and there were some financials that I did not know were going to be in there. And so I had so many people reaching out after that. So it wasn't until that moment that my family actually even knew how well we had done.
Yeah. That's a proud moment, though. I mean, as a mom myself of 3 kids, and just seeing my kids succeed is way more, I don't know, gratifying than myself succeeding. So that's a pretty cool moment for them too.
Yeah, my parents are very proud parents. They love to brag about me to their friends. So they're huge fans.
Well,
They're just
rightfully so.
wonderful people.
Yeah, I just want to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, but I want to wrap it up for, Michelle mentioned our small little podcast here. Do you have any advice for us going forward so we can have our moment where just
She's
things
kind of cool though.
Yeah, she's kind of cool. What's the advice you'd give us?
Well, I think, one thing is for everyone listening, go rate this, give it 5 stars, leave a nice comment.
Please.
The more people that do that, the better for you guys. I think the more you can repurpose clips, if you can pull out some clips from this and post it on social media, it only takes one of the right ones, the right message that hits at the right time. That can do it. I think having someone that can actually manage or help manage the social media side of it could be a huge benefit. I don't like doing it. I don't do it. We have people that do it, and I think it makes a big difference. And I think the more content you put out, the more it lives out there and you give it a chance to be found, right? So a lot of people, I know tons of authors and tons of podcasters that you see them today and you're like, wow, you have a huge following. But what you don't know is that they had years where no one knew who they were. They had nothing pop. I mean, Hal Elrod's a great example of this.
Yeah.
The Miracle Morning book did not take off. It's a huge success story today. They sold millions of copies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done. But that didn't happen in year one. That happened well beyond year. I mean, I was there for the whole thing, right? It happened way beyond that. I knew Hal before Miracle Morning. I remember his first book he wrote, Yo Pal Hal was the name of it.
Yo Pal Hal. He didn't
Pal
tell us
Hal.
about that. We didn't get into that.
And so, it's cool to see, but it was like it just took the right person sharing it at the right time, and then it took off. So some of this can be done with intentionality, with you putting it out there, getting it on the platforms, picking the right things that resonate with people, even asking questions that you're prepping based on what will pop on social media. Like all those things matter, but sometimes it's just luck. I mean, I will say with my book, I really think a lot of it was luck and timing. I've got a message that resonates, but I could have launched it at a different time and maybe it wouldn't have done what it's done. Right. So I think there's an aspect of that, but I also think you're rewarded for putting yourself out there. Cause it's tough to have a conversation that other people listen to, and you can make mistakes and people hear it and know it, and you just have to be comfortable
It's being
with
vulnerable.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we were talking about this today. I said me researching something is a lot different than when we first started, right? Because I feel like now, even more so, we have a responsibility to try to get things right,
To be accurate.
to be accurate-ish, and it's part of my charm. I flub words. I just said
Exactly.
it.
Perfect.
Exactly
That's
right
perfect.
there. I flub words all the time, but I used to be very self-conscious about it, and Steve really got me over that. He goes, "No, that's part of your charm."
It's part of it. Yeah, it's part of the fun.
Yeah. So
Well, and the more human you are, the more people like you. They're like, "Oh, she just messed that up."
All the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
She's like me. I do that too.
Yeah,
right?
all the time.
exactly right.
And you just want relatability. And I think, it's so interesting. Like we edit virtually nothing. I mean, we
That's
edit
us
sound
too,
quality,
yeah.
right? But we just let stuff ride.
We're the same. In the beginning,
People like that.
Yeah, in the beginning, I would spend an hour editing. Each little every time I bump the mic or something, I'd edit all that. And after a while, I'm like, no, it's just us being us, having fun, sitting here, the three of us having a conversation. I think people appreciate that and enjoy it. So.
And I think it's really nice that Steve and we have a very good personal relationship, very great working relationship. And I trust his opinion. And if he says, hey, you probably shouldn't have shouldn't do this, or if I do the same thing to him. And so I trust my partner who I'm sitting across.
Yeah, she doesn't say it as nice like that to me. She's like, what the hell were you thinking when you said,
I actually
you
have a book
idiot?
that says shit Steve
Yeah,
says.
that's right. That's our book.
funny.
That's going to be our New York Times bestseller.
You should put that
Justin.
out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us and spending your Friday with us. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're
My
really,
pleasure.
really honored to have you. Thanks for coming on the show.
And also, we've got all kinds of different programs and products. If you go to lifestyleinvestor.com, we've got online courses, master classes, all sorts of things, blog, the book, the podcast, everything that's there. But what I'd love to do, and right now our mastermind communities, we've got, our primary one is on a wait list, so people can apply, but it's tougher to get into. But what I'd love to do for your audience, so anyone watching this, listening to this, what I'd love to do is help you, at the end of my podcast episodes, I always say, what's one step you can take today to move towards a path of financial freedom and living life on your terms, a life by design, not by default. And so I want to encourage your audience today, if they would like to take a step towards that and figure out what's next, I'd love to offer for free. We've got these consultations that we do, these strategy sessions that are generally $500 a call, but I'd love to offer it to your audience absolutely free if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation. This has been a blast, and I look forward to seeing what your show does as you continue on putting out awesome episodes. And you guys are diligent about putting content out every single week, which also really matters. So well done, and just big shout out to you guys, to Keller Williams. I've got a lot of friends here.
That's great.
That work with and for the company, and have spent some time with Gary Keller and really think highly of him and appreciate him and what he's done. And for people that are interested in buying homes, buy from you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
All right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I want to make sure
That's
you
the
guys
clip
are.
we
There you
want.
go.
There it is. You guys are the real deal. I mean, if I'm buying a home, I want to buy it from someone that is real and authentic. And so I hope you get people that listen that recognize you're not just these, podcast radio personalities, but you're real people that are down to earth, that love other people, and you really care about your craft. So to anyone listening that's like, hey, I want to figure out, what I should do to get a rental home or buy a new home or whatever.
Yeah.
Come see you guys. Come see Steve.
Yeah,
on the
that's
show.
great. Thank you for the plug, Justin, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Get to know your local full-service Generac dealer.
Cody and Dylan with Nomic Power Solutions are a veteran-owned, Texas-based Generac dealer and installer.
Offering low monthly payment options, it's never been easier to gain independence from the grid.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates.
Turnkey service including design, plumbing, electrical, and permits.
They even offer set-it-and-forget-it maintenance plans. Nomic Power Solutions.
Protect your home. Protect your family. Stay ready. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
melliottstudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.